We have three candidates taking part in today's debate. Incumbent Republican Congressman Brian Bilbray, Democrat Scott Peters, and Democrat Lori Saldana. Our panel of reporters, KPBS senior political correspondent Gloria Penner, UT San Diego reporter Christopher Catalago, and 10 News anchor Steve Atkinson. We begin with opening statements. Each candidate has 1 minute. The order was determined by random draw, and Congressman Brian Bilbray is first. Your time begins now.
Thank you, Jonah. It's great to be here, but mostly important, it's great to be here with Gloria Penner. Gloria's really been an icon for our community. It's great to be able to participate with you, Jonah. The gentleman, I appreciate this. I think, as Gloria will tell you, as a nation, we're in a very, very precarious situation. I mean, as San Diegans know that almost 1 in 10 San Diegan is unemployed today. So it's a real challenge of how we can create jobs. At the same time we're talking about that, we're at $14–15 trillion worth of debt. And we're facing a potential, according to the president, within 10 years of facing a $26 trillion debt. And I think that one of the biggest challenges I've tried to say is, how can we work together, but how can we also say no to the overspending in Washington? And that is why when President Bush tried to throw money at the problem and try to spend too much money, I said no to him on his bailout. And when President Obama did what Washington does too often, and that is rather than address the problem, try to buy their way out, I said no to President Obama. When both sides are wrong, we need to correct it.
Congressman, your 1 minute is up. Scott Peters, your time begins now.
Thanks. I'm Scott Peters. I currently serve you as a member of the Board of Port Commissioners, where I've been for 3 years. Before that, I was 8 years on the San Diego City Council, where I served as your first president under our new form of government, and before that, 15 years as an environmental lawyer. You know, at the port and at the city, I've developed a reputation as someone who solves problems by working across the aisle, whether it's finishing things like Petco Park or Highway 56, or cleaning up our beaches and bays by reducing sewer spills by over 80%, creating the city's first ethics commission, or at the port working to support the North Embarcadero project after 15 years of deadlock, or to support the convention center expansion, which will mean 6,500 new permanent jobs. We've worked together to get things done. That's the attitude I'd like to take to Congress, to work for you, because Congress is broken and we need to fix it.
Thank you, Scott Peters. Lori Saldana, you have 1 minute.
Thank you. Well, it's very clear. This election is about protecting the middle class and reinvesting in the things that we know will create a strong middle class moving forward. We need to reinvest in education and innovation. We need to protect health care for seniors. We need to make sure that our servicemen and women who are coming back from the longest combat in the nation's history have the resources they need to get on with their lives. So this election couldn't be more important to the future of our country in investing in young people, which I've done as an educator for many years, including here at San Diego State on this campus, making sure seniors have dignity and respect, Medicare and Social Security are protected, and our servicemen and women have the resources they need to come back in the veteran community in San Diego, which is the largest in the country, and make sure they have the resources to continue to contribute to our community back at home. Those are the issues I'll be working on in Congress. Those are the issues that really affect everyone in this country and that matter the most in this election.
Thank you, Lori Saldana. Well, this first question is to all candidates from our Public Insight Network. Women's health was among the top 3 issues raised by our Public Insight Network, where we've been asking voters to submit questions throughout election season. 75-year-old Mary of San Diego asks, do you support health insurance covering women's health care, specifically birth control? Again, determined by random draw. We begin with Scott Peters, and you have 1 minute to respond.
Absolutely. It's remarkable to me that we appear to be on a precipice of a new war on women, where we're going to fight the battles that women like Mary fought and won 30 or 40 years ago. I mean, it is quite outrageous that we would be talking about this kind of thing when this battle should have been done. My wife and I have been longtime supporters of Planned Parenthood. Mr. Bilbray voted to defund Planned Parenthood, which is just the wrong way to go. We ought to be past this issue. We ought to be getting the government out of these choices between a woman and her doctor, and we ought to be worrying about the big things in this election, which are jobs and the economy. But absolutely, I support it.
Lori Saldana, you have 1 minute.
Well, my thoughts are with Mary. I have members of my family that are like Mary, in their 70s, 80s, rely on Medicare. And we know the proposal that Mr. Bilbray supported in the past would turn Medicare into a voucher system. That affects health care for everyone, but especially women, because women live longer and rely more on public health care plans. I think it's interesting a 75-year-old woman is concerned about family planning and birth control, but she knows that's the best investment we can make for women's health, that women who choose to plan their pregnancies have healthier babies. Every dollar we put into that, whether it's employer paid or in other programs, the women wind up having healthier pregnancies, they have healthier babies, and that means healthier families. The number one leading cause of bankruptcy in this country is medical bills that aren't paid. And that's why health care coverage for everything, including women's health care, is essential. And the bankruptcies are people who have health care that's not sufficient to cover their medical bills. So health care for all, especially for healthy women and healthy babies, is essential. Your time is up,
Lori Saldana. Congressman Bilbray.
Well, let me say, as a father of 3 daughters and a grandfather of 3 granddaughters, absolutely, I think it's an essential part of the healthcare network. I think that, as Mr. Peters said, though, the problem is when the federal government starts getting between the patients, the doctors. That has always been an issue, and where and how these decisions are made should be made in the local communities and with the women themselves. I want my daughters to have these choices. I don't want Washington imposing itself between my daughters and their healthcare system. As a county supervisor, I spent 10 years providing these essential services, the baseline services that we take for granted here, but are essential that we keep it here in San Diego, not have Washington control those decisions.
Okay, thank you. Now we are going to our panel of journalists. Christopher Catalago, you have a question of Lori Saldana.
Assemblywoman, disapproval of the president's handling of the economy and gas prices is increasing again. In your mind, how much responsibility should the administration bear for the rising prices at the pump, and what should Congress be doing about it?
Well, Congress is actually already doing something very strong about this, and it's a question I plan to bring up a little later. There is the Commodity Futures Trading Commission. There is regulatory oversight that needs to look at speculative trading that is impacting at a cost of over 56 cents a gallon the price of fuel. I think what President Obama needs to do is make sure that that commission is having the regulations that were put in place by legislation passed 2 years ago, and make sure that it's doing its job of oversight. Right now, there is a letter signed, and I don't know if in fact, I know Mr. Bilbray didn't sign it as of a week ago. 70 members of Congress have signed a letter to the commission asking them to enact regulations put into place by the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform Act, making sure that they enforce the regulatory oversight that's needed. Speculation is what's driving that, and this is a free market system, but we do have to have better oversight, and that is something that the president could do. So I would like to ask Mr. Bilbray why he hasn't yet signed on to this letter with 70 of his colleagues, and I think this is the direction we need to go. It was the problems with lack of oversight that led to the Wall Street meltdown 3 years ago, and now we have the tools in place to have better oversight. The president can enforce that, and I think that members of Congress that are currently there need to be part of this plan to make sure that the high gas prices that disproportionately impact the lowest income people in this country are managed in a better way. So the president does have some opportunities to do that, but so does Congress. And I think that that is very important that we see some leadership. And this was originally created by Senator Bernie Sanders, an independent. And I think that as an independent, he is showing true leadership in getting 70 of his colleagues to agree to enforce these regulations that are in place.
Congressman Bilbray, you have 1 minute.
Well, I think first thing we got to do is recognize that we've got to start giving good choices to consumers. I've led the charge on developing green fuels such as algae. In fact, I oppose ethanol because the ethanol that we're getting here in California, last time it was looked at was $6 a comparable gallon while it was polluting the air. I know that as somebody who's worked on the environmental side. But we also got to allow consumers to have that choice, and government's got to start saying yes. Look, I may not agree with everything about the Keystone Pipeline, but the fact is that pipeline is a political game that's being played rather than a job or an energy independence. We need to talk about why isn't natural gas available for our automobiles when it's available to most of our houses. These are options consumers should have a choice between oil or clean gas rather than being forced to have to go with one, and people always saying no and turning down. And I think where we could start is allowing natural gas into our fuel system and also allowing people to build the pipelines or just cross the pipelines. And the State Department should not be making the energy decisions or should not be making environmental decisions.
Your time is up. Scott Peters, you have 1 minute.
When I was a kid, I remember my dad pulling into a gas station, then pulling out because he says, I'm never going to pay 44 cents a gallon for gas. Now it's 10 times that. I paid $4.50 last time I filled up. And gas prices have only been going up under every president and under every Congress. And the pressure is even more now with Brazil, China, India, all seeking to use these depleting fuels. So we can use natural gas, but it's kind of in the pipeline. It's kind of more the same. We have to bridge to a new energy future that's based on renewable and sustainable things. China and Germany are investing in solar. And if you can turn your economy away from these depleting fossil fuels toward solar, toward wind, and toward renewable energy, you can avoid the costs of war for oil, you can avoid the costs of cleaning up spills, and you have a future where the economy is not so hampered by these high gas prices.
Lori Saldana, you have 30 seconds for a rebuttal.
Thank you. Well, I think that giving consumer choices is absolutely important. But again, my emphasis would be on regulatory oversight, which is now available thanks to regulations that were passed a few years ago, but they need to be enforced. And that is something that needs leadership. And there is leadership right now, but the Congress needs to get behind this. And we're seeing that the Do-Nothing Congress that has passed the fewest bills in history is simply not doing its job of making sure speculation isn't driving up oil prices. And again, I think Mr. Bilbray needs to sign on to this letter and show real leadership.
And that's time. Thank you. And now we turn to Gloria Penner, and you have a question for Congressman Bilbray.
I do indeed. And this is an issue that's expected to come up during the next 6 months, 1 year. It's the issue of illegal immigration policy. It's legislated by Congress. And in California, we know that more than 60% of those polled over the last 5 years say those undocumented workers who have worked here for at least 2 years should be allowed to stay, to keep their jobs, and to apply for legal status. What do you believe should happen to illegal immigrants who live and work in the United States?
Lori, you know I'm the only member of the Congress who've rescued illegals when they're drowning, recovered their bodies when they didn't make it. I've seen them slaughtered on the freeways, and you remember that. I've seen what happens when we send mixed messages across the border, and we've seen the costing human life. I think the real key here is that we've got to stop the illegal immigration by going to the source. Don't talk about the border. Talk about the employers who are the real culprits here. And all I'm asking is that Democrats and Republicans get together and stop giving tax deduction to the employers who are hiring illegals, and the government is giving a business deduction. So I strongly support a bill called New Idea that says it's illegal to deduct the cost of bribing somebody. Doggone it, if you're some big employer hiring illegals, you shouldn't get a tax deduction as a minimum. And let me tell you something. You do that. If you have the INS coming after these guys rather than the IRS instead of the INS, that will do more to stop illegal immigration than all the fences and all the Border Patrol. So Republicans and Democrats are both wrong when it comes to this issue. And I think this is something we should be able to talk about in cool, calm, quit sending mixed signals around the world and say, we're going to do this first. We're going to shut down the illegal employers. And once we do that, then we have great opportunity to talk about where we take the next step. But until we shut that down, we'll be enticing people with that mixed message that's already cost up to 600 to 700 people a year dying on our side of the border, and 50,000 being killed in the drug and the immigration and the smuggling wars on the other side of the border. So I think if you really care about this issue, you spend as much time at the border and south of the border as I have, you would understand we've got an opportunity if both sides are willing to take on the big employers. And we can do that as Democrats and Republicans and as Americans.
Scott Peters, you have a chance to respond to that question as well.
Well, I'm all for cool and calm. I think we need a border policy that's tough, fair to taxpayers, and practical. Of course, it starts with border security. And of course, we should go after employers who are violating the law. But this notion that anything other than deporting 11 million people, which is what the Republican position has been, is amnesty, is not practical. And the idea that you would reinterpret the Constitution to deal with what Mr. Bilbray calls anchor babies is not going to happen either. And we've got serious problems to deal with. We have to be more practical. You know, right now, a kid comes from abroad to get a PhD in science at UCSD. We give them the degree, and then we kick them back out. So it's possible that the next Qualcomm, instead of being here in San Diego creating jobs here, is going to be in India. Now tourism is having trouble because people can't get visas because we can't get Chinese people visas to come here, so they go someplace else. That hurts our tourism industry. We have the these cross-border traffic that's legal
Scott
that
Peters,
we're
your
slowing
time is
down
up.
and costing money on both sides of the border.
Lori Saldana, you have 1 minute.
Thank you. Well, it's very clear our border region relies on the ability for goods and services and people to go back and forth in a safe and secure way. Illegal immigration has dropped tremendously because of the economic slowdown, but unfortunately drug smuggling and more dangerous crossers are increasing. So we need trained professional law enforcement along the border to do their job for safe communities. And 60% of Americans believe we need a path to citizenship for people who have been here, and the only law that they have broken was a civil violation on the citizenship or on the immigration papers. If they haven't committed a crime, if they've been paying taxes through their purchases and other means, they should have a path to citizenship. Now, I want to say one thing about Mr. Bilbray. I visited his office when he was in Congress in '95. His staff had posted letters making fun of people writing to his office asking for him to reconsider his position on birthright citizenship. They posted those letters and faxes. They made fun of the language. They said English should be the official language of the United States. I've run 2 offices, as you have done, Mr. Bilbray. Why didn't you have your staff take those derogatory comments down from those letters?
Congressman Bilbray, you have 30 seconds.
Look, here's what happens, Gloria. Here you have a proposal. Let's stop giving tax deductions away. Lou Dobbs and Ed Schultz can agree on that. If that's not bipartisan, that's bipolar. If you can get those two agreeing, why can't you get the 2 other candidates staying up here to agree we should stop subsidizing the employers who are creating the problems, and then we'll build from there. But if you can't start by finally getting to the source of the problem, the employers and the tax code, how the heck do you expect somebody to be sincere when they get to Washington to actually get together and work on this?
And that is time. We return to our panel of journalists where Steve Atkinson has a question for Scott Peters.
Thank you so much. Mr. Peters, what can you do realistically as a congressperson to bring more business here to San Diego and, more importantly, stimulate job growth?
And you have 2 minutes, Mr. Peters.
Well, you know, the federal government has a real responsibility in investing in our future. And the three basic things I think we could do right now to secure a future for America and for San Diego. First, invest in transportation and infrastructure. As a member of the Board of Port Commissioners, one of our biggest challenges in getting more trade is our connection to the highway and rail system. And America has stopped making those investments. We could put people to work right now if we were talking about rebuilding our roads, our bridges, our broadband, our power grid. In China, they spend 9% of their GDP on that. In Europe, 5%. Here, it's 2.5%. We're trying to figure out how to cut it. That's not going to make us competitive in San Diego or nationally. Another example, I'm a product of the financial aid. I was able to get financial aid in school. We know that kids have to be able to go to college for us to be competitive in this environment, a global economy. And in San Diego in particular, you know, we compete with brain power. Well, the cost of a public education in real terms, adjusted for inflation, in the last 30 years has gone up 350%. That makes it hard enough for a family to afford it. But then the federal government's cutting back on Pell Grants and other financial aid that really puts us out of the reach of people. That's not the right way to be competitive in the economy, and that's not the right thing for San Diego. Finally, basic scientific research. You know, Qualcomm grew out of basic research at UCSD and has transformed not just the San Diego economy, but the world. And every day, people on the Mesa are using National Institutes of Health grants to find cures for Alzheimer's and for cancer that they will find. And those will not just transform San Diego's economy, but they'll improve the standard of living for people across the world. Those are 3 ideas that the federal government can take up that they're letting us down on.
Lori Saldana, you have 1 minute.
Thank you. Well, study after study shows that the way you build a strong workforce and a strong economic base for whether it's a region or a country is by investing in people through education, sparking innovation. That's what's happened here in San Diego. We have the wonderful research university, UCSD. We have San Diego State. We have things that really attract employers to come to San Diego because we have bright, trained, professional people. What has hurt us is the cost of housing, the lack of affordable housing, concerns about water supply, things that they look at for the long term. And those are all things that I've worked on as an educator, as a presidential appointee, working on water quality and water supply. And we need to make that more secure in this region to continue to attract the employers that know they have a trained professional workforce and they have tremendous opportunities here in San Diego.
Congressman Bilbray, you have 1 minute.
First thing you've got to recognize, we're not Chicago, we're not Detroit, we're not Pittsburgh, we're San Diego. And high-tech and biotech is an essential part of our economic opportunity. And we need to protect those jobs first and foremost. That is why I pushed heavy on being able to get NIH funding to our research facilities. That is why I've been recognized with Congressman Markey as being the top legislator when it comes to the bioscience this year and was offered that reward. Not because I was doing something for Washington, but San Diego is a powerhouse. And we need to bring American money back for American jobs. But we also got to remember this is about saving lives. Our biotech people are coming up with the miracles that will save our lives, maybe not us, but our children and our grandchildren. The jobs here in San Diego are essential. The research and the medical breakthroughs are unforgivable if we allow that to leave this community and leave this country. And I've led that fight, and I'm proud to get to that. That's what it means to be a San Diegan congressman, especially in this district. You've got to stand up for those research facilities when it comes to NIH and when it comes to getting them the capital and the research they need.
Scott Peters, your rebuttal.
Well, it's time to do that. I mean, we used to, our investment in basic science research used to be 4% of the budget. Now it's half of that, and the Republicans are trying to figure out ways to cut it. We're trying to balance our budget on the middle class. We're trying to give tax breaks to oil companies that have never been more profitable. And if you're serious about supporting these job-creating ideas, you got to deal with that. And the Republicans just have not done it, nor has my opponent, Mr. Bilbray.
Okay, our next question is for all candidates, and this question comes from our audience via the Public Insight Network. You each have 1 minute, and this is from 69-year-old Shelley Plum of San Diego. She asks, what will you do to foster a green economy and work toward reducing our carbon footprint? Now, Lori Saldana, we want to begin with you, and you have 1 minute.
All right, thank you. Well, I was a co-author of AB 32. That was a bill that will bring the state's greenhouse gas emissions down to 1990 standards. I also authored AB 1103. That's a bill that will ensure energy benchmarking in every non-residential building in California and will spur the renovations of older buildings to be energy efficient. So as a legislator, I have already led the way on some landmark bills that will conserve energy, that will encourage rehabilitation of older buildings, and that will make sure that people benefit from that greener economy in very substantial ways. That's a better bottom line for businesses, that's better for our air quality, and that's better to reduce the chances that we will see continued climate change going forward. So I've already done many of those things, and I think the green economy in California is stronger because of those bills that I co-authored and authored.
Congressman Bilbray.
I am the only member up here that I know of that served on the Air Resources Board, the most successful environmental strategy in the world. We are the people that tried to warn Washington that methanol and ethanol was not going to be good for the environment. I think that, and we got attacked for it. And frankly, I think that we need to talk about real answers. We don't need to talk about turning our corn into bad fuel. We need to talk about algae production. But sadly, when AB 32 was passed by the Assemblywoman, she didn't exempt it from CEQA, so that the scientists at UC San Diego that developed the green fuel technology could site their production here in San Diego, where we're talking 800 to 1,000 jobs were moved to New Mexico, because we didn't change the environmental and the government regulation to allow the green option to be produced here in San Diego. I think we need to know what we need to do. We need to be smart, and we've got to be willing to change government to allow these environmental options to go in there. And I can go through the different regulations, and I'm working with Democrats on things like putting solar panels on, and finally having universal laws so we don't have people blocked from being able to make those options that we're talking about.
Scott Peters.
Thanks. You know, one of my volunteer jobs has been as chair of the climate initiative at the San Diego Foundation, where we've provided philanthropic support for good scientific decision-making around climate. We know that San Diegans want they support that, and they want the job creation that comes from it to be here in San Diego, not in China and not in Texas. When I'm in Congress, I'll support a transition to a clean economy based on solar and other renewable energy sources, and we have to be willing to make investments in that. Germany's taken our industry away from us that started here. China's investing even more than that. If we want to be competitive, we're going to have to be serious, and I'll support in Congress making those investments that provide a more secure, a cleaner and greener economy in the years to come.
Okay, UT San Diego reporter Christopher Catalago, you have the next question, and it goes to Brian Bilbray.
Congressman, would you object to President Obama attacking Iran without a congressional declaration of war?
And Congressman, you have 2 minutes.
Yes. Frankly, if the land troops are not committed, no, I wouldn't. And I think I'm very concerned that he would do it, but I think diplomatically now he needs to be tough diplomatically this year, even if it's tough on the election, to make sure we don't have to be militarily tough next year. Now, I met with the Assistant Prime Minister of Israel and talked about this extensively privately, and we're very concerned about this. But I think Congressman got to understand there are places for us to do our job, and we need to step forward. I think that Congress should have required a declaration of war from Congress before going to Afghanistan. The Republicans and Democrats were wrong on that. We need to take that responsibility. But when it comes to some of these foreign policy issues, like it or not, those of us in Congress have to understand that's the executive branch's department until they start committing troops and committing to a long-term strategy. So hopefully we'll avoid that. Hopefully we will see a diplomatic position that is strong enough that sends a clear message that the next option may be that, as Israel has talked openly about. So I think that, we talk about everybody having their jurisdiction and Washington overstepping. I don't think members of Congress should overstep our jurisdiction into the executive branch just because we feel the executive branch has stepped over and violated the separation of powers the other way. So I try to give the man in the White House the benefit of the doubt. He's got a tough job to do. And frankly, we'll be judging him based on those decisions long into the future. And I think that there's a chance to be able to say, it's your call, Mr. President. We'll try to support you, but only to a point. Thank you.
Scott Peters.
Well, obviously, this is a really critical thing this year. And we know that Israel is one of our closest friends. We've got to be very concerned about what Iran is up to. It's not clear yet, I suppose, whether there is actually a plan to develop nuclear weapons in Iran, but I think all indications are that that's highly likely. And I certainly encourage the president to do whatever he can in the terms of sanctions and so forth to prevent that. And I would certainly view force as a last resort, but something that may ultimately be necessary, regrettably.
Lori Saldana.
Yes, thank you. Well, as someone who has traveled to the Middle East and Central Asia, and I think the sanctions need to be given time to work. The United Nations needs to do its job with economic sanctions on Iran, and I think they do need to open up their facilities to the inspectors, the international inspectors, and so we can verify just where they are in their uranium enrichment programs. That said, the president has been very clear. If there are signs, if our intelligence shows that they are developing weapons, that we have allies in the Middle East, and Israel in particular, that we will have their back. Let me take a minute, though, to say something on a previous question. Mr. Bilbray, you suggested that we weaken the California Environmental Equality Act as part of AB 32. You may have voted to weaken the Clean Water Act in Congress, but I would never vote to weaken the California Environmental Equality Act. That is not the purpose of AB 32, and I wanted to get that in because it's important that people understand that that is not the way you protect the environment, by weakening Environmental Equality Act.
You are off topic. I'm going to have to stop you there. Congressman Bilbray, you have 30 seconds for a rebuttal.
Well, it's interesting. The same legislature that wouldn't do it for saving the planet waived the Environmental Quality Act for the stadium at the City of Industry. And I don't think a stadium... Well, I'm just saying the same legislature that did that.
And I will have to remind you of
Thank
the original question, which was about Iran.
Thank you. We're back to...
Okay. You're done with your rebuttal then with regard to...
Just the rebuttal.
Okay. We are going to move on then to Gloria Penner, who has the next question for Scott Peters.
It's interesting. We talked about division of powers. We talked about the legislature and about the executive, but we haven't talked about the Supreme Court. So, Scott Peters, the Supreme Court's going to hear oral arguments later this month in a challenge to whether Congress had the power to decide the minimum coverage requirement of the Affordable Care Act. Very controversial piece of legislation. What's your position on this act?
Well, you're asking me a legal question. I could...
it's not a legal question.
My position on the act itself?
Yes.
Oh, I think, first of all, we have to make affordable care. We have to make care affordable and available to everyone. And there's a lot to like about this act. For instance, I like the idea that your 26-year-old, your kid could stay on your plan until you're 26 years old. I think that's very helpful to families. I like the idea that you could not be denied insurance coverage because you had a pre-existing condition. That's been a very difficult thing for people to deal with, and it's important that we address those issues. But I don't think we've done enough about affordability, and when I'm in Congress, that'll be my focus. We know that there's some effort to create incentives for doctors to provide care in a more cost-effective way, less incentive to provide test after test after test. We need that that to work. We know that there's some effort to do record keeping and management in a way that's more efficient. We need to make that work, and we need to find other ways. The other idea that has come up is the notion that under Subpart D, under Medicare, we should be negotiating the price of drugs for seniors like a private plan would. And apparently we're just taking the bill from the drug company and paying it. And that's probably a place to save. So when I get to Congress, my focus will be to continue to make that more affordable. We're not there yet.
Lori Saldana?
Well, in the California legislature, we passed a healthcare exchange law. We were, again, leading the way in the state to make sure that we had competition in the healthcare industry. And I also supported our efforts in California for universal healthcare for all of our citizens. Unfortunately, the bill was vetoed and held at different iterations throughout my time up in Sacramento. I would say this, that we need to, frankly, get into the 21st century with every other industrialized nation in the world that offers every citizen access to healthcare. It's time for the United States to be part of that. And we also need to look at making healthcare affordable, and the Affordable Care Act is going in the right direction. But I do have the support of people like State Insurance Commissioner Dave Jones, who's supporting my campaign, in part because he and I are both progressives in the area of healthcare. We want it to be accessible and affordable to everyone. As I mentioned earlier, it's the leading cause of personal bankruptcy in this country, and those are people with insurance. Those aren't the uninsured. Those are people with insurance, but the insurance isn't sufficient to cover the cost, the rising cost of medical bills.
And Congressman Bilbray.
Thank you. Gloria, I think that everybody agrees that pre-existing conditions, the 26 age, it's all things that we support. The problem with the so-called Affordable Act was it wasn't affordable. It underestimated the cost by almost 50%. But the biggest issue, we didn't do what it takes to reduce the costs. We didn't take on the insurance companies and say, we're going to invoke the interstate commerce that the federal government can, allow consumers to buy insurance policies across state boundaries. And we didn't take the other one, and that's having a lawyer here, is getting the trial lawyers out of the operating rooms. It's pretty sad when the fact that somebody who's on public assistance have more right to sue their doctor than a Marine who's serving his country. And don't tell me that lawyers are essential for quality control. I went to the to the Balboa for my care. I'm sure Lori did too. That was good care, and we didn't have lawyers looking over the shoulder of doctors there. So we need to do something to reduce the cost if we're going to provide the service.
And that is time there. Your rebuttal, Scott Peters.
You know, we know that the situation before this bill was passed was untenable. It was unsustainable, and that the cost of health care was just rising year after year. And the problem with Mr. Bilbray and the Republicans is that when a proposal was made, they said their goal was not to fix the healthcare system. It was to make sure that President Obama was a one-term president. That's not leadership. If you don't like it, make suggestions. Let's all figure out how to make it more affordable. But we know that the situation before this bill was passed was absolutely untenable and was going to break the bank.
And now we go to Steve Atkinson from Channel 10, where you have a question for Lori Saldana. And Lori Saldana, you will have 2 minutes to respond.
Thank you. Ms. Saldana, one of the things that most Americans have a frustration with is the infighting that takes place in Washington. What can you do as a congressperson to break that partisan gridlock?
Sure. Well, I certainly was able, as the chair of the Legislative Women's Caucus in Sacramento, it's the only bipartisan caucus in the state legislature. We focus on the issues that don't have a partisan bent. Simple things like education for everyone and health care, caregiving for seniors. I can't tell you how many seniors are providing care for other seniors in their household. And as women live longer and with fewer resources, that becomes a women's issue. In Washington, I want to continue to build on my Veterans Affairs issue. I served on Veterans Affairs for 6 years. I introduced legislation to help our families across the country be part of the Interstate Education Compact. This is not a partisan issue when you're dealing with the education of children in military families. And I grew up in a military family. I'm proudly wearing my Marine Corps pendant here. And I know what it's like to move in the middle of a school year and my mother scrambling to have transcripts in place. I authored legislation, partnered with 30 other states to make sure that families don't struggle and have kids lose credit and not graduate from school as a result. That's not a partisan issue. Education, supporting our military families, and supporting our veteran families, those aren't partisan issues. When I go back to Washington, I will continue to do work on that. I served with a Republican governor for 6 years. I had dozens of bills signed. I learned how to work across the aisle. I learned how to craft agreement on key issues, from energy savings and energy efficiency to health care. I was also law enforcement's choice on many bills because I understood public safety is not a partisan issue. So if I want to work hand in hand with people that have serious concerns on public safety, on veterans care, I've done that. I will continue to do that in Washington.
Congressman Bilbray.
Yes, I mean, the media loves to play games and look at all the guys who are fighting, but they don't look at those of us who are working together. Bob Filner and I may politically have different positions, but we work together to get a 2-year budget cycle for veterans. That is Democrat, Republican working together as Americans. When you had Congressman Murphy from Pennsylvania, we worked together and saved $98 billion a year. I was honored to have the president have me in the White House for the signing of the bill I co-sponsored. In fact, I even invited him to come surfing down at Point Loma with me. And the fact is that when we talk about even the Port District, when they needed to get a bill to allow the Americas to come here, they asked me to work with Nancy Pelosi to be able to bring in a bill. And if you think Congress doesn't have enough control, think about this. It took an act of Congress just to hold a sailboat race in San Diego. That shows you how far we've gone in the wrong direction. But yes, the bipartisanship is something you've got to do if you want to be successful and represent this community appropriately, and I've proved I can do that.
Scott Peters.
Well, I mean, I love blaming the media. I mean, if you listen to Congressman Bilbray, you'd think everyone's working together and things are great, but congressional approval is at 9%. Look, I've already explained that my whole stock in trade has been to work with other people to get things done. That's why I'm endorsed not just by Democrats, but by 3 former Chamber of Commerce chairs who don't necessarily agree with every political position I take, but who know that I'm in it for the right reasons and I'll work to get things done. I was the first Democrat ever elected to my district, which was a Republican district, because those people felt like in the face of all those sewer spills, an environmental lawyer who happened to be a Democrat would be better able to clean up the beaches than a Republican nurse. And that's my whole orientation. I don't want to be one of the teams that's shooting at each other. I want to go to Washington. I want to get things done. That's my record. I compare it to my 2 colleagues any day.
Lori Saldana, your rebuttal.
So, well, I don't know there's anything to rebut. It sounds like we're all saying that we have some very solid accomplishments in a bipartisan way, and that's good for the voters to know. They need to know that we have worked in cooperative ways, and we intend to continue to do that. But I think I'm the only one who has served under both a Republican and a Democratic president as an appointee to an international commission to solve water quality issues. I'm the only one who has served 6 years on Veterans Affairs in a state with the largest veterans population, or at least the county in San Diego has the largest veterans population in the country. I know what we need to do to serve those issues very well.
And that is time. This next question is for all candidates and comes once again from our audience via the Public Insight Network. You each have 1 minute to respond. And 51-year-old Robert Domino of San Diego asks, would you support a citizen's effort to see our public tidelands become a great park instead of a wall of hotels, or remain Navy headquarters? And we begin with Congressman Bilbray.
Actually, even though it is not my district, both the property owners and the port has always asked me to get involved with these issues. And absolutely, I think that trying to work with the Navy at finding an option that can work for both. Obviously, the national mission of national defense is the first priority of the Navy and of those of us in the federal government. But to work out a compatible approach, and I think the biggest issue there is that you've always got people that find reasons to be opposing a proposal so nothing gets done. And sadly, that's something that we need to try to work through. But again, I'm very proud that the city, the Port District, and the property owners have always come to me to try to work on this, because we've worked together before. Stuff like the cruise ships are here today because we were able to work with the port and the city to make that happen. Hopefully, we'll be able to work this one out to improve our bayfront and defend our nation.
Scott Peters.
I'm really excited about what we're doing on the waterfront. Last year, while I was chairman of the port, we broke ground on the North Embarcadero Phase 1, which is a project that's been fought over for 14 years. We were finally able to get shovels in the ground to begin to build a world-class waterfront that will be great for residents and our tourism industry. We also broke ground on our 18th park on the waterfront, and I would love nothing, and the county is also building, by the way, a great project across the street with fountains and open space as well. So something really cool is happening on the waterfront. You're going to start to see that about 2013. I'd love nothing more than to continue that progress with the Navy Broadway complex, which can be a new building with a lot more open space and can be a public amenity that's much more consistent with what we're doing at the port. We haven't really gotten the kind of support from Mr. Bilbray that would help us with the Navy, although we've asked him. And I'd love to be able to work on that in Congress, and that's one of the things I would look forward to doing.
Lori Saldana.
Thank you. Well, these are public trust tidelands we're talking about. That was a designation of land that the state of California created about 100 years ago. And sadly, those public trust lands have been privatized to the point that people have lost public open space. And the citizens of downtown San Diego that I did represent for 6 years, even though we have more families living downtown than ever before, they don't have enough parks and open space for recreation. A pocket park where you can go and have a nice view isn't sufficient when you're a family and you'd like soccer fields and you like open space for kids to have good, healthy recreation. Mr. Bilbray forgets you did represent that district in the 90s when the Base Closure and Realignment Act was going forward, and you helped give land away at a loss to taxpayers, public lands at Liberty Station, what's now Liberty Station. It was a Naval Training Center, a developer that you helped, who is one of your supporters and also one of Mr. Peters' financial supporters, has benefited tremendously from those lands. I think that you do have a record of not protecting public lands in San Diego, and maybe you've conveniently forgotten that, but you did represent that area back in the 90s.
And that is time now. We have another question for all of our candidates, and again, this comes from our Public Insight Network. This question is from Lawrence, and he wants to know, how do you plan to represent the electorate without using personal and special interests? Again, you all have 1 minute, and this question goes to Scott Peters.
Well, I mean, I have a long record of working on avoiding conflicts of interest and make sure that people know that government is open and transparent. One of the first things we did at the City Council was create the first Ethics Commission, which is the only one in the county, but we wanted to make sure that people knew that their government is working for them and not for interests or developers or lobbyists. And that's been tremendously successful. And we've always been very, very careful. Every docket, I make sure that we review it to make sure that there's no conflicts of interest, and I think that's a very important thing that I'd like to take to Congress.
Lori Saldana.
Well, I think transparency is absolutely essential. It's something that, when I've run for office, by far the majority of my contributions come from individuals. I have thousands of small contributors supporting my campaign. I think if you really want transparency, Mr. Peters, do what I have done, what Mr. Bilbray has agreed to do. Show us your taxes. Let the people that you want to vote for you know more about your financial background. I think that's essential to transparent government. We take on the obligation and responsibility of serving people and representing people in tough economic times. I think it's important that they know where our resources come from, because that will shape how we represent them back in Congress. I'm a school teacher. I've been a teacher for much longer than I've been in office. I want to keep working for the middle class. I want to represent the people that I know are trying to have a chance at the American dream. And those are my special interests, the people that are working every day to pay their bills, to afford higher education. Those are the people that I've represented, that have supported me, and I'll continue to work for in Washington.
Congressman Bilbray.
I think the most important thing is that you remember the human factor. This is not about dollars and cents. It's not about power. It's about human beings. And that what we do does matter, especially to our children and our grandchildren. When it comes to transparency, you're right. I'm willing to show my tax return. Mr. Peters may not, but heck, I think the world ought to know just how poor a congressman can be working. But I think that it is one of those things you do as a minimum. We do a lot of this. And all I got to say to Mr. Peters is you're right, there's a transparency. And his own Kroll report said that his participation in the pension program was negligent. Now, this is an attorney who knows better, gets into it. But I got to say one thing. That's the one thing good about having the open system we have in California. And I wish that we had it more in the federal government. And I continue to fight for more of it in the federal government, so that you were able to know things like what the Kroll report said about the deals that were being made in City Hall at the time that Mr. Peters were there. And I think that he'll admit this is why we need transparency.
I can respond.
Actually, no, but we do have some time for some yes or no questions. I'm going to begin. Same question to all of you, beginning with Lori Saldana. Do you support same-sex marriage, yes or no?
Absolutely, yes.
Scott Peters?
Yes.
Congressman?
No.
Another yes or no, and this time I will begin with you, Scott Peters. Do you support legalizing marijuana?
No.
No.
For medicinal purposes, yes.
Again, this is yes or no, but you each will have a minute to explain why as well. And we're going to begin with you, Congressman Bilbray. Do you support the Occupy movement? And do you see yourself as a 1%er or a 99%er?
I think that when we look at our tax returns, it's going to be obvious that I'm a 99%er. No, I think that the one great thing about the movement was that one lady who really did more than all the people that are camping out on the parks and destroying the grass in D.C., and that is the lady who said, I'm taking my money out of the big banks and I'm taking it over to a credit union. I think she's the hero in all of this, not the people that are demonstrating and people that are camping out, but the lady who found a way within our free system to be able to express not only her wishes, but her power as a consumer. So I really just say yes to her. She's the 99 one that I really think that ought to be given the credit for the great success of everything that's been done on this movement was her decision to have consumer involvement in the banking system.
Lori Saldana, I'll repeat the question again, yes or no, and then why. You have 1 minute. Do you support the Occupy movement, and do you see yourself as a member of the 1% or the 99%?
Well, I've already released my tax forms. It's very clear I am a 99%er. I support the Occupy goals, and I think they've succeeded in raising awareness of the increasing income inequality in this country. We are seeing the greatest gap between the richest and the poorest in this country in 100 years, and that's unsustainable. Look at any economy in any country. When you lose the middle class, and worse, when you lose the opportunity to become part of the middle class, which is what is happening here because of stagnant wages, because the budget cuts are being placed on the backs of our lowest income families, people who are seniors, people with disabilities. That's what Occupy has succeeded in doing, in shifting the focus at the media to income inequality. And I think they have done a great job of educating the people here on the panel that are part of the media to pay attention to some of that and realize that we as a country cannot survive when we see too many people living in the lowest rung of the ladder, and worse, the rung of the ladder is being cut away and they don't have a chance to move up to a true American dream and middle class existence.
And
so
that is time.
Thank you.
Scott Peters, same question.
Yes. I want you to know I'm the son of a minister and a church secretary. The government stood behind me so that I could get financial aid and go to college. And I'm running for Congress to make sure that every kid had the same opportunity that I had. Now, I've disclosed every investment that we have, all the holdings I have. Anyone can look at it. It's on the internet. I've got nothing to hide. And I also recognize that this government has been giving tax breaks to the wealthiest Americans. And it's my belief that those people who've done well in America should do well by America. So the important thing is that I want those people who have been fortunate to pay their fair share in terms of their taxes, because we have to give kids like me the same opportunity that I had.
I have another yes or no question. Again, you have 60 seconds to explain why. Would you support or not support overturning the Citizens United decision? And let's begin with Lori Saldana.
Well, I was invited to speak actually at an Occupy the Courts event back in January, and I was very clear that Citizens United basically gave anonymous, unlimited funds to go to super PACs, and I think that is a threat to our democracy. People need to know where the money comes from that is going to support the information that is received on any campaign, any election. When I ran for state government the first time, I signed on to the Clean Elections Pledge. I took advantage of something in California that sadly doesn't exist at the federal level to limit the contributions that I had coming in, and the Citizens United decision turns that on its head, and it basically says that corporations have more rights than individuals, that the corporations can give anonymous money to super PACs, and I completely disagree with that, and I would support the overturning. Unfortunately, it could take a constitutional amendment to do that, but I do think that it really is a threat to our democracy, and I absolutely oppose that finding by the Supreme Court.
Scott Peters, would you support overturning the Citizens United decision?
Absolutely. I think we're going to see this year the huge risk that this poses, that this anonymous huge amounts of money can come in and really try to buy these elections away from people. What I would suggest, too, that while I agree with Ms. Saldana, while we're waiting for that, why aren't the Republicans behind disclosure? Because we could require that everyone who's making these contributions discloses who they are, so at least voters would know, who is funding these massive campaigns we're about to see. And the Republicans have consistently been against that. They want it anonymous. They like it the way it is. I don't.
Congressman Bilbray.
Well, I'm the only one standing up here who actually voted for the campaign finance reform that outlawed corporations, unions, and millionaires from buying seats. And if you look at this, the millionaires can write checks unlimited to themselves all they want. And that has as much impact in the process as corporations and unions sticking in. So I supported that legislation. I was the original co-sponsor of it. Sadly, again, Congress is limited by a Constitution that I may not agree with it, but I respect the fact the Supreme Court makes this ruling. And all of us sitting up here can talk all we want. The fact is, there again is that separation of powers. I voted to outlaw these kind of contributions, and the fact is the Supreme Court made the final decision. I accept it. I don't like it, but that's what's being American all about. We swore to uphold the Constitution. We've got to live with the ones that we don't like too.
And we are coming to the end of our question portion of this debate. We now will ask each candidate to make their closing statement. They have 1 minute. And again, based on a random draw, Lori Saldana, you begin.
Thank you. Well, I want to thank Public Broadcasting for making it possible for us to be here today and answer these questions. I very much would love the support of the people I have served for 6 years in the legislature to continue to represent you in Washington. I think that there's some very clear choices here, and you've had a chance to learn more about us. Again, I'm the only one who has 6 years of service to our veterans, serving on veteran affairs. I'm the only one who has managed Department of Labor grants to fund innovation and information technology in our colleges and universities, and that's how we invest and turn the economy around, by investing in people. And before we end tonight, I just want to say I'm thinking of Eleanor Mang, a dear friend who passed away this week. She was an icon of volunteerism here in San Diego, and I've been thinking a lot about her throughout this debate, and very happy I could be here sharing the stage with these gentlemen this evening.
Scott Peters.
Yes, thanks for mentioning Eleanor. I think we are all going to miss her. I want to thank everyone for their interest in an important race in an important election year. You've heard some political views from a Washington insider and a Sacramento insider, and you've heard my views about working across the aisle to get things done. Our campaign is supported not just by almost every Democratic leader who we all admire, from Lucy Calais to Dee Dee Alpert to Chris Kehoe to Tony Atkins and more, by labor, by teachers, and by civil rights advocates, but also by 3 former chairs of the Chamber of Commerce who don't necessarily agree with every political position I take, but they know I'll work together with people to make solutions across party lines. They don't see that from Congress, and they don't see that from the incumbent, Mr. Bilbray. I'm the son of a minister and a church secretary. This government, this America has given me opportunity beyond my imagination. We deserve better from our Congress. With your support, I'll go to Washington and bring some San Diego common sense.
Time is up. Congressman Bilbray.
Well, thank you very much for being here and listening to our discussion. I think that we all remember, I need to understand, this election is going to make a difference. It's not just to us, our children. Our grandchildren's future is being decided in this election. And that's why at this time in my life, I could be doing a lot of things. I don't need a job and I'm not bored. But I know that Washington is going to make critical decisions about how to control a $16 trillion debt, how to get the economy back on its feet and allow American money back onto American soil to create American jobs rather than borrowing from China and stealing from our grandchildren. With your support, we can work together. I've worked with both sides of the aisle. Americans need to come together. And we've proven that that's the future if it's going to be a bright one. Again, thank you very much for the chance to be here, and God bless America.
Well, thank you, candidates. That concludes this special KPBS broadcast, Race for Congress. I want to thank our 3 candidates, Congressman Brian Bilbray, candidate Scott Peters, and candidate Lori Saldana. I also want to thank our wonderful panel of journalists, Gloria Penner, Chris Catalogo, and of course Steve Atkinson, and to all of our audience members who submitted questions through the Public Insight Network. For more on the 52nd Congressional race and complete coverage of election 2012, please visit kpbs.org/election. For KPBS, I'm Joanne Faryon. Thanks for joining us.